the people of sake actually brought me into sake.
Back in 1988, this place was actually in Ginza on the main drag.
At first it was kind of soy sauce, it was miso.
To the point where it actually changed my life.
New Year's Day 1989.
Not just sake as a beverage, but all the culture and history.
Welcome to another edition of Sake on Air. With the very generous help of the Japan Sake and Shochu Makers Association, we are now in a very different location, and we are sitting across from a coffee table in a very lovely room from this is a name that many people listening to this are going to know, the one and only Philip Harper, who has agreed to let us invade his off-season downtime to share some stories and some stats maybe, and some prognostications even, about the state of the industry and the state of his life running a sake brewery in Japan. So thank you, Philip, very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, good to see you.
I would also like to make sure that everybody is aware that I am joined by two of my esteemed colleagues. To my right is Cindy, and to her right is Frank. These are two folks who you have heard their names a million times and their voices as well. And we drove out here from Kyoto as a trio this morning, and thank you for driving, Frank.
You're very welcome. It was a nice drive.
This is a nice little road trip for us.
It's a fun time to get out of Tokyo. Still a little too hot this summer, but
it's a bear. But we are in an air-conditioned space, and I'm very grateful for that. And I am a little bit... this happens every time. We've already started the conversation before the mic was running, so we might have to cover some territory because it was very interesting. Yeah. So, Phil, could you please just give us a brief introduction that will be lovely as a review for all the folks who know of you, and then a great way for people to get on board with where we're starting from.
Yeah, well, my name is Philip Harper. I'm originally from the UK, and I came to Japan pretty much on a whim when I was 22, and got hooked on sake pretty quickly, and started making sake for a living in 1991, and I've been doing that ever since. So I've worked for 4 different breweries, and I joined this brewery, the Kinoshita Brewery, where we make Tamagawa sake 18 years ago. So I'm coming up to my 19th season here. So kind of depressing to be this old, but it's been lots of fun to do it.
What brought you to this brewery? What was the seg?
So, I mean, I was working in a brewery in Osaka before this one, and in my final season there, I knew I was leaving, and I was talking to a guy who sold brewing gear there. And at that point, that company was a father and son outfit, and the son was in charge of the Osaka brewery, and the father was in charge of this brewery. And the guy who was the master brewer here before me, he started working when he was 16, and he worked here his entire life until unfortunately he died of cancer 19 years ago. And so my boss had never worked with another master brewer, and as you know, things have been tough for the sake industry for a long time, and so my boss was thinking, maybe this is the time to close shop, and he discussed this with the father of this company, of the owner of this company that sold the brewing gear here, because they worked together for years and he trusted him. And of course, because this is Japan, the guy said, well, you can close it, that's your privilege, but your ancestors will be sad. And this guy I'd like to introduce you to. So he introduced me, and so my boss said, okay, we'll give this thing another go, and here we are.
That's amazing. And so you just almost, it was unplanned, but you ended up walking into a completely changing the chapter type of situation.
Absolutely, yeah. As you know, the overall production of sake has gone down and down and down, and that's true for breweries in this area as well. This has never been a big brewery. You hear this story with a lot of breweries where they were making loads of sake back in the day, and now they only make a little bit of sake. But we were never one of those breweries that made loads of sake. It was always only ever a small brewery. And sales, the decline of sales was not as dramatic as it was for most of the local breweries. But even so, things had been getting harder and harder. And the boss, I mean, he'd been doing stuff because obviously, the sales hadn't gone down as much as for other local breweries. But he had done everything he could think of, and so he'd already come to the conclusion that business as usual was just not working. And so, like when I mean, it was maybe one reason why he did this mad thing of hiring a foreign sake brewer, which is kind of, I mean, a weird thing to do. And I mean, so business as usual was already exhausted as a strategy. So when he hired me, I mean, he told me right from the outset that basically, I mean, it was a very traditional brewery where our most distant customer in those days was 20 minutes away by car. So you couldn't find any of Tamagawa sake in Kyoto City or Osaka City, let alone Tokyo or overseas. So it was it's a classic old school system where just brewing for the local people. And so, he said to me, well, we have the sake that pays the rent that the local people drink. We leave that as it is. And that is the business as usual bit. That we'll leave alone. And we just need to do a load of stuff. So come up with a bunch of ideas. And so that was my brief. And that's kind of what we've done, yeah.
So this was like about 2007, right?
Yeah.
Like, what were your challenges with that? I mean, you're taking over from a well-seasoned, well-established Toji that's been here for 45 years. What were your initial challenges? Because the brief seems pretty open.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in a sense, I mean, it's kind of like blue skies, right? I mean, you can go anywhere with that. And by that stage, I mean, I'd already been brewing. I'd already been in this industry for like 17 years or something. And I mean, so obviously, just selling sake to the local people that's okay, but we leave that alone. But and the obvious market for me to go to was selling to specialist sake retailers, which was basically the market that I was used to, the market that I'd always worked in. And so, that was where we were going to go. The boss wanted to make, at that stage, they had a shiboritate sake here, and that was basically, it was just the regular sake, except it wasn't pasteurized. And the boss said, I want to make a Junmai style shiboritate, which like doesn't sound that radical now, but back then in this market, it was kind of a radical thing to do. And so the boss has said to me, well, we need to come up with a bunch of products. I mean, I love omachi rice, so I said, well, I'd be kind of really pleased to do that. So he said, okay to that. There's iwai rice in Kyoto Prefecture, and they didn't use that here. And I said, we're a Kyoto brewery, maybe we should do something with that. So we started brewing with iwai rice. And also, I mean, I've always really liked making and drinking Kimoto and Yamahai style sakes. And again, in the specialist retail market, obviously there's a niche for that as well. So I said, yeah, we're going to try some of that. They'd never done that here before, so that was a totally new thing that we started. So that was the kind of where we started in the first year there for making new products. And in terms of staffing, in that first year, we even in those days we did rice polishing in a house. And so there was a local guy to do that for me. And one of the people I worked with in the Osaka brewery, when I moved there, he said, take me with you. So he came with me from Osaka. So for those first couple of years, he and I would eat dinner and drink sake together every night. So it was good to have him with me. It was like somebody I knew and somebody I trusted. And there were two local guys who had worked with the previous brewer. The boss introduced me to them before the brewing season started, and they said, we're not going to do it. And I'd been talking to the owner already about brewing schedules and stuff. And I mean, it was the old system where basically it was given that you would work without a day off. And I said to the boss, this is kind of maybe not such a good idea anymore, and that we probably ought to set up the brewing schedule so I can give people days off in rotation. And the boss had already said okay to that. And so when I met these two guys and they said, we're not doing this anymore, and I said, why? They said, well, there's no days off. And I said, well, actually. Oh. So I pulled that excuse from under their feet because I'd already set up a schedule where they would have days off in rotation. And so they agreed to stay with me, which turns out to be very fortunate because they're still with me now.
No
so
kidding.
Awesome.
those two guys will be rolling up for their 19th season with me in a few weeks. So you know,
Crazy.
if those two guys hadn't been here, I would have been like dead and buried a long time ago. They carried a lot of weight for me over the years, for sure.
Because that's what often happens, right? When a new Toji comes in or there's a big change in what you're doing, the old staff often leaves or has to adjust in one way that they don't want to.
I mean, and before we started, I mean, we were talking about the old days, which is when I find I'm from. And I mean, in the old days, so brewery owners didn't hire kurabital, didn't hire brewery workers. They hired a Toji, they hired a master brewer, and the master brewer would bring his team. So when the master brewer changed, he took his team with him. So it was always, in those days, it was automatically a complete change of personnel. And that doesn't tend to work in the same way anymore. But I mean, you even so, you still often get a lot of. And it's a big thing when you get the guy in charge of the brewing changes. That always is a moment for lots of things, good and bad, to happen in a brewery. Yeah,
I'm sure those first couple of years must have been just a crazy experience. Can you give us some color on that, both the good and the bad?
Well, I mean. Yeah, so this was like the fourth brewery I'd worked in, and I mean, changing breweries is like a insane thing to do. I mean, it's hard to explain how challenging it is. Even like, I mean, like I'd done it a few times before I came here, but automatically, the water's different, the equipment is different, everything is different. And I mean, I was in an Osaka brewery before I came here. I mean, it's only, you look on the map, it's not that very far, but in Osaka in the winter, it's blue skies and it's like really crisp and dry. And up here, you don't see blue skies from autumn till spring. It's like always overcast and lots of snow, and it's like very high levels of humidity. And I mean, so when I started making koji, it's like a totally different thing. I mean, I didn't sleep for about a week because like the koji just wouldn't do what I wanted it to do at all, and you have to like totally rethink things to be able to do the same thing. So there were all that kind of like all the automatic stuff that happens when you move from one brewery to another, and there were changes that had to be made. Sort of, I mean, as it was pretty common. You can even now you can find it in a lot of small breweries. There aren't any walkways. You find people just working on ladders the entire time, which is like very inefficient and dangerous. So for the first thing I did when I arrived was I built walkways, so that it wouldn't have to be ladders anymore. And in terms of equipment, again, I mean, it's a small brewery. There's not loads of money flying around to like buy tons and tons of equipment or whatever. But the boss, he wanted to make this shibori tate product, a Junmai style, and I mean, I suggested making it a Junmai ginjo because you can get it at a higher price point. And so the boss agreed to that, and this is like good on paper, and then you start thinking about the practicalities of it. And if you're making kind of regular style sake, then temperature control is a relatively low key thing. If you're making Junmai ginjo, then you have to be a little bit fussier about that kind of stuff. And we didn't really have the necessary equipment to do that. So we had to buy a chiller for water right out of the gate. And there was this like really crusty old rice washing machine, and I really didn't want to do it with that. So we bought little rice washing machines as well right out of the gate. And I mean then you kick off the brewing, and you're working with these two guys who'd worked with the previous brewer. I mean, he hadn't really taught them any brewing stuff at all. I mean, they were just like machines to carry stuff. And I mean, so the first time I'd worked with them, but they were both like really, really keen and hardworking. And I thought, it's kind of like a shame to just like having them like carry stuff. And back then, I mean, you can translate this, 300 koku was our brewing schedule. And I mean, at that kind of range, I mean, it's quicker basically. It was quicker for me to do everything else than it is to teach people. But they were so keen, and I thought, this is like, I mean, they're so keen. I mean, so I put one in charge of the yeast starter and one in charge of the main mash, and I had to teach them like from absolutely from zero to do that in the first year. But in a couple of years, we were making twice that, and then if I'd been trying to do that on my own, I would have been like hospitalised in no time. So it was lucky for me that I did sort of get them up out of the gate in that first season to do that stuff.
Were you in a leadership position at the previous brewery?
Yeah, so when I joined that brewery, there was another master brewer there, and he left halfway through, and I became master brewer. So, yeah, I mean, I had been in that seat before I got here, yeah.
And how did the Kurapito take your first suggestions of doing that? Because they were with the other Toji for such a long time, just carrying and being told, put this here, put this there. Like, was it convincing needed from you saying, like, guys, would you like to learn? Or were they very keen? Or did they take it easily?
I can't really remember how it was. I didn't. It wasn't like I was like bullying them into doing something that they didn't want. But you know, it's a challenging thing to do. You know, so you know, it's pretty challenging for both of them for sure. But I mean, I don't think it was something that they were like really didn't want to do, and I made them do it. I think they were happy to learn this stuff and to do it. And I mean, you know, you come into if you come into this situation where there are people who are already in place, you don't want to say that everything you've done before is rubbish. But on the other hand, if there are things that need to be changed, you have to, and getting that right is like one of the really tricky things that you have to do in that situation. And like, I mean, so like talking about this, the rice washing machine. I mean, the rice washing protocol here before I came was that it was, I don't know if you've seen, probably not, it's kind of like a screw thing. And you bung the rice in this and it rotates in a screw with water. And then it falls out the end, and that means that the rice is washed. And so they would put the rice in here, and it would come out the end and fall into the steamer, and it would sit there until the following day. And I mean, I did not like this rice washing system. So we bought the new machines, but I didn't want to say to my guys that you've been doing it wrong all this time. And so we washed the rice for the koji with the new machines, and I thought, okay, we'll do the other stuff the way they'd done it before, and we did it. And I mean, I kind of knew what was going to happen if you have rice kicking around at high temperatures, you get like bacterial growth, and it turns a funny color when you steam it. And so it did that, and I said, and so at that point I said, I'm just over this, and so we binned the machine and did it with the new machines after that. And they were okay with it, you know, because they saw the difference, you know. And I mean, we did a lot of stuff that there was like more work and stuff, but they got on with it and didn't complain and really, I mean, especially those two guys, because now, I mean, I'll have to show you the brewery later, but now we have more equipment and stuff, and back then we really didn't. So those guys worked with me in the dark ages when things were really tight and tough. So I owe them a lot for sure.
You said that you know, you've talked about this a couple of times, that you lived together through the season.
Yeah.
Can you paint that picture for us?
Yeah. Well, so I mean, I keep banging on about the old days, and in the old days, brewers were basically all farmers. Occasionally fishermen, and they would leave their homes and families and live in the brewery until the season was finished in spring, and then they go home and do their rice fields again. And that's the system that I learnt to brew in. And I mean, that's more or less gone. Most breweries now, the majority of breweries, I think, work with people employed year round. And even breweries where there are seasonally employed people, you don't get this thing so much now of people living in the brewery like it used to happen. And now, so my team, they're all seasonal, and I have four local guys who come from home unless they're on the graveyard shift, in which case they will sleep here as well. And then there are 5 of us who live in, and so we eat 3 meals a day together, drink sake together. This Japanese expression of like eating from the same rice pot. And I mean, it is a really interesting thing. I mean, it's like it's not the same as a normal workplace relationship. If you actually live and work in the same place, I think you do build up a different kind of relationship with those guys. And there's a lot of really good things about it, but you know, in most breweries now, it's not an option for a lot of breweries. So, yeah, I mean, I think it can be a really, really valuable thing. And it's you know, it's fun to have people to eat and drink with.
Yeah.
If you get on.
If you get on. But I mean, you have to get on. I mean, the cliche about harmony and wa being the glue that keeps breweries, absolutely, totally true. And I mean, even more true in the old days because you lived together. I mean, so in the old days, here we are again. A master brewer would usually have his own room, but everyone else slept in the same room. You know,
Right.
so you'd have like 8 guys sleeping in a room this size, and then waking up at the crack of dawn and working together, and then working together in the night. And I mean, things can get ugly pretty quickly there if you have like friction and tension. So this thing about harmony, it's not some kind of like wishy-washy philosophical thing. It's an absolutely necessary part of successful brewing.
Sure.
Who makes the meals?
So we have a nice lady who comes and cooks for us, and they buy a boxed lunch, which is okay, and then our nice lady, she rolls up in the afternoon and cooks dinner for us and a couple of bits and pieces for breakfast. And if she can't make it, then it used to be the brewery owner's wife would do the cooking for us, and as of last year, the brewery owner's son's wife is now rolled up to be the pinch hitter if our nice cook lady can't make it for some reason. Yeah, so she's the most important part of person in the brewery as far as my guys are concerned.
Sure.
It's all Japanese food. You don't get like a big English breakfast or anything.
No, it's totally Japanese home cooking. Yeah, and yeah, we're obviously lucky and grateful to have her. Yeah.
Great, that's cool. I'm jealous.
Huh. Yeah.
How big has the team gotten now that, I mean...
Yeah, so that first year there were 5 of us, and now there are 9, including me and the rice polishing guy. And so I have it set up so like there's somebody who's on holiday every day. And so if this was the brewing season now and I'd be here talking to you, that would mean there'd be 6 people doing the brewing. And if there aren't visitors or meetings or whatever, I'm there as well, then there are 7 of us on duty.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because the rice polishing guy, he's out back doing his own thing, so he's kind of separate schedule.
Got it.
And that represents a move from 300 koku to now
300 to we're about 1,000 now.
about 1,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it sounds like, from what I'm getting, the whole process of Philip, the brand new Toji, coming in, basically revamping not only the way that the sake is made, but also the mindset of the brewery and the reach of the products. That process sounds like it went pretty well. Like, but I have to assume that there were some pretty interesting hiccups in there.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
it's like it makes you kind of tired to think about it. In those days, as I say, I mean, like it was totally local market, and there was like one hotel chain locally that sold probably like 40, almost half of all the sake that was made here.
Wow.
And for really stupid, nonsensical reasons, the owner there, he told my boss, I think at the end of November that year, that he wasn't going to buy the sake anymore. So suddenly we were like looking at a 40% reduction in sales, that was a moment for sure.
Oh, wow.
But you know, so I mean, so in my mind, I mean, if it works at 300, I mean that's cool. But with normal sake pricing, basically you can't make a living with making that much. So you know, it's obvious that we had to make more, we had to sell more. So I'm not really a very business-minded person, but I mean, it was like, even to me, it's like obvious that the only answer is to make more and sell more. So I wasn't sure what the right sort of volume to aim for was, but my boss had in his head this thing that one day he wanted to make 1,000 koku. So and I mean, I didn't know if that was the answer or not, but I mean, so that there was our brief then suddenly to get somehow we starting at 300 and got to get to 1,000 is the plan. When we started making the new stuff, and we did the shiboritate, the Junmai Ginjo one, and we shipped that unpasteurized, unfiltered, undiluted, which again is not something that you usually do. And they didn't really do any unpasteurized sake here at that stage, and so we had to buy a fridge or something. So we're going to buy a shipping container. And, you know, they have the 20 feet ones and the 40 feet ones. And I mean, I said, yeah, well, we haven't got any money and 20 feet will probably be enough. And the boss said, well, okay, yeah, but I mean, it's not that much different. So we'll buy a 40 foot one. And we bought a 40 foot one. And the next year we had to buy another one because there wasn't enough space, and so on and so on. And, you know, you make all these new products and some of them sell as much as you would like. And of course, some of them don't, you know, and so there's the issue then of what to do with whatever sake is left over. And I mean, that was kind of a key moment for us because like the first master brewer I worked for, he made indestructible sake. I drank the last bottle of sake of his that I had a couple of years ago, and it was like 30 years old at that point, and it had been in the fridge for 10 years and at room temperature for 20, and it was still great. Yeah. And so that's how I learnt to brew. And so I said to my boss, you know, so he said, what we're going to do is we have unpasteurized sake left. Well, obviously, fridge is like one thing for that. But I said to him, you know, the sake I make, I mean, you know, I haven't made sake at this brewery yet, so we didn't know for sure. But I mean, all the other brewing that I'd done, I knew that I could make sake that would last. And I said, well, if it goes as it should, then if we have leftover sake, it's not going to go bad. It will get better. And he didn't know that, but I mean, so he trusted me on this. And so we started doing this and saying, you know, like in 6 months or whatever, you've got like 6 months old sake, which is for in the normal world is just generally, obviously it's not good for cash flow, but I mean also quality wise, if it's not the right kind of sake, that's not going to be good either. And I mean, he saw that it was true that the sake got better over time. And that was a key thing for us because I love aging sake, and I mean I think it's weird that the sake industry hasn't done more with this stuff over the years, and so this was one of the things that I had suggested to him, and so that was a key thing because he saw that it was true that the sake didn't get worse, that it was going to last. And when the new sake came out, I mean I'd already sort of like been in touch with a few of the retailers that I'd worked with them in the past, and so when we pressed the sake, I like send samples, and we got some orders that way. And then kind of in the later half of the season, it came time to do the Yamahai that I'd asked to do, and they'd never made a Yamahai sake here before, so that was like totally new. And the guy I put in charge of the yeast starter, so you start with the normal Sokujo yeast starter, and so I say, here's the yeast, here's the lactic acid. If you forget to put this in, we are screwed. And so I spent like several months telling him this, and then we start doing the Yamahai, and like there's no lactic acid and there's no yeast, and then so it's totally different from everything that he's spent the last few months learning. And I mean, I'd done Yamahai and Kimoto at all the breweries that I'd worked for up to that point, so I've been doing that for quite a while. And I mean, this job it's a conversation with microorganisms, and in recent years I'd been kind of thinking about the very few breweries that make sake without using pure yeast cultures when they're making Yamahai or Kimoto. Very few, and you're taught that you're not allowed to do that. It's incredibly dangerous, and it's just like completely beyond the pale. You're not supposed to do it. But I mean, thinking about, you know, here we are with this brewery that nobody has heard of, and we've got to find a way to get into new markets. And Yamahai is a thing that some people are really interested, but you know, there are lots of Yamahai in the world, and so I thought maybe this is the time to try making Yamahai with wild yeast, which I'd never done before, but I'd been kind of thinking about it and seeing how it might work in the sort of few years before I came here. And I'll show you the brew in a minute. You'll see we have wooden buildings with earth walls, and I mean, it looks like there should be fun stuff living there. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to give this a go. I'm going to try and make it without adding yeast, which I'd never done before. And as I say, you're taught is incredibly dangerous and you're not supposed to do it. And I didn't actually mention this to the boss. So he said, okay, we're going to make Yamahai. And I mean, he's a kind of traditional brewery owner, so he's not always looking over your shoulder all the time. You're the brewer and you do the brewing. And so I started doing this. It's very nerve-wracking stuff because it's like incredibly dangerous, and I'd never done it before. And you know, sort of 3 weeks in, it's all bubbling along, and it's like doing all the good stuff that it's supposed to do. And so I said to the boss, "Can you come and look at the Yamahai yeast starter, because it's like up to speed now?" And he comes and looks and he says, "Oh yeah, this looks good." And I said, actually, I didn't actually put any yeast in. And he said, is that even a thing? You know, because, so the yeast starter went well. We made the sake, pressed the sake, and my boss told me later that he'd never drunk anything that dense and complicated and thick, and he really didn't think that this was a thing that was sellable when he first tasted it. And so we did the same thing that we'd done with the other sakes. You know, we'd sent little samples to the retailers that I'd worked with in the past. And when we sent those out, suddenly they all came. They up until then, you know, they'd phone up and say, okay, send us a few cases. And that sake kind of like was a bit of a game changer for all of them, because it was this like really, really funky, wild umami bomb. And when they heard again that we'd done it without adding yeast, this is a very rare thing, obviously. And so suddenly we had all these like retailers rolling up from Osaka and Nara and places, and shocking my boss.
That was the first season you were here?
First season, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and I mean, people have said to me, you know, wasn't it like really, really rash or daring or whatever to do this in your first season? But I mean, say if you think about it, if I'd done it the normal way and added yeast in the first season, it had gone well, then it's kind of really difficult to say, right, now I'm going to do it without. And I mean, say it was the first batch, and I mean, if it had gone wrong, I could have just like apologized a lot.
You want to make your mistakes early, and then you can go back to the normal way if you have to, right?
If you're going to do it, I mean, yeah. And so we did that. And when I came here and I was talking to the year-round staff who sell the stuff, they all said, like we have sake flavored ice cream here, and everyone said to me, you know, we in the summer we sell like ice cream sells like crazy, but we can't sell any sake. And so I said, okay, well, so we should make a sake that goes with ice cream. And there were a couple of people had made these kind of like sakes from antique methods, and I tasted a few of them and knew that they would be great with ice cream. So I talked to this guy Horie Sensei from Shimane Prefecture, who is a big sake researcher, and I mean he'd worked with me in other breweries, and I knew that he was really expert in that kind of brewing. So I phoned him up and explained sort of broadly what kind of stuff I was aiming for, and I said, have you got any recipes? And so he sent me a bunch of recipes, and I chose one. And we brewed according to the recipe, and what came out we called Time Machine. And so that was originally made to go with we'll give you the ice cream later, you can taste it. And so that's where that started. Do
you know where the original recipe came from?
Yeah, it's from a book, well, a scroll actually, from 1712.
Okay.
And it's from the Hiroshima region. And I mean, it's like lists of instructions for brewing and making carpenter's tools and a whole bunch of other stuff. Yeah.
I always assumed it was found in here for some reason.
Right. Well, if you go to New York, there's the story in New York is that I was like knocking down a wall in the brewery, and this recipe fell out of the wall. And it's a really good story, so I don't actually contradict it if I can help it. But it's
that's
like
probably
totally
why it's still
true.
around.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Horie Sensei faxed it to me.
I love it.
Yeah,
He faxed it too. Yeah. Of course he did.
But then also the label is kind of a little bit different than normal. Like, can you talk a little bit about the label for Time
design?
Machine? Yeah.
Oh, for Time Machine or for all the labels?
I mean, probably for all the labels, but maybe we start with Time Machine as we're...
Well, Time Machine, so I mean, when I made the sake, we didn't have a name for it. We had a concept. It had to go with ice cream. And then we have to think of a product name. And the boss said to me, like, we're the only brewery in Japan with a foreign brewer, so I want an English product name. And so when we had this product, and I mean, it's thinking, okay, it's a 300-year-old recipe, and so we called it Time Machine. And then when it came to making a label for it, the central logo, which my guys called Marutama, the round logo, that was made for us by the boss's brother-in-law, who is a big-wig Japanese artist who's far too important to be doing label design. But the boss had been kind of thinking about asking him, but because he was so important, he hadn't really dared. And then, you know, when I arrived and it was all this new stuff going, he said, "You think this is the time to ask him?" And it turns out that our previous label had been a very conventional calligraphy label. And it turns out that the boss's brother-in-law really didn't like the previous labels and thought they were really boring. And so he kind of wanted to do it. And so he did that design for us, that really cool design we have. So that's the center of the Time Machine label as well. And the label shows a picture of a sake brewery from 1712. And if you look closely, you can see there's a little robot hiding there with our logo for a head. So he's there pottering around a brewery 300 years ago, seeing how it is done.
Very cool. And that Marutama, the logo that you have at the moment, because for me, I always thought it was a face.
Right.
But maybe it's not.
It's not a face. It's actually the kanji for Tamagawa. But normally you write with a brush, and the way Sakane Sensei, the way this guy did it, is it's kind of the similar system to woodblock printing, where you cut away, and the remaining part is the character. Nukeji it is in Japanese, and so when he had the design ready, me and my boss, we went to his house in Kyoto to see it. And it's like a big room like this with like dozens and dozens of these things spread around the room. And he said, so here they are. And you can choose any one you like. This one has my soul in it.
So well, there you go.
We'll have that one. Yeah.
Soul, no? Easy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a cool design. And I mean, I like the calligraphy labels too. But I mean, however cool the calligraphy is, it's still calligraphy. And I mean, if you're foreign, you can't read it. And if you're Japanese and you drink a lot, the next day you can't remember which one it was. Where, you know, our logo, people remember it. And I mean, like you said, it looked like a face to you. Even for Japanese people, I mean, it's very stylized. So it's not even immediately apparent always to Japanese people that that's the kanji for Tamagawa. I think people who don't read Japanese, a lot of people will see that as a face. If you turn it sideways, it looks like fish bones, and like restaurant people say this is fish bones. Some Japanese people think it's the character for Kotobuki, for this lucky character.
Oh yeah.
And so I mean, it's the guy. He's not a designer. He's a hardcore artist guy. And so you know, it's a much more powerful object than I think that you get coming out of some design studio. And it's been a big part of what we do for sure.
Yeah, because it's really memorable. I mean, even because I'm not a big Japanese speaker or reader, but it always stood out to me, you know. And there's something that's really artistic about it, but also you can, when you said like, oh, this is my soul in it, it makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, you look at it and it's like, yeah, there's something different about it.
Yeah, well, because I mean, I've worked at 3 different breweries before this, and I mean, I've never felt a stronger connection to a label, you know, because it is a really powerful object, I think. Yeah.
There was a question earlier before we went on air that I thought was your answer to it was really interesting, and I know we already went through it, but it's the fact is basically when you're working at a brewery that follows the older system, you're only getting paid for the time that you're physically in the brewery. What do you have any? Do you know what your team does when they're not here? What other vocations they have today? Yeah,
well, so I mean, in the classical system would be they would all be farmers, but that's kind of gone now pretty much. There's one guy who does a bit of farming. My rice polishing guy, he works on the local golf course. Okay. One guy, his family have a beach restaurant, so he's raking in the cash over there now. One guy, he works on the tea harvest in June. One guy goes around the world on his bike. One guy who works for me is a carpenter, so he's carpentering now.
Does he carpenter when he's here sometimes?
No. I mean, when he's here, he's working for me. So.
I mean, like if something needs fixing.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's always a good idea to have a carpenter in the team if you can manage it.
I agree.
No. And it's really funny. I mean, because carpentry and sake breweries are very old school Japanese work environments. This whole shokunin thing, which is like a very weird, specific subculture within Japan. And because he's a carpenter, and I mean, you know, he's from Tajima, so he's like a country carpenter guy. So when he talks to me in Japanese, he's like very extremely polite and formal in the way he addresses me because when he comes to work for me, I'm the oyakata, I'm the boss, and so he brings that with him from his culture. And I mean, he's been working with me 5 years now. and you know, when he's doing brewing stuff, he's a great worker. He remembers stuff really quickly, and I mean, you know, he gets on great with everyone, so it's all good. And then if you ask him to do like some carpentry job, and he puts on his carpenter belt, and he suddenly turns into a completely different person. It's really interesting to watch.
Cute.
When you guys are, because you spend so much time together, when the sake comes out, what are you drinking?
Well, I mean, obviously, we're tasting every batch as it is pressed through the winter, of course. We're also tasting like random stuff. We age loads of sake here as well, so there's always that conversation of like new old stuff coming online as well. And you know, my guys, a lot of them are really interested in sake as well. So I mean, I will buy other people's sake, other people will buy. So you know, we're pretty much almost every day at the end of the working day, we're down here tasting sake.
It's an education.
As education, as it's work. Yeah. And I mean, our rule is always that you never know what you're tasting. It's always blind tasting. So if you're being really rude about the sake, you could be being really rude about your own sake.
Yeah.
And so that's absolutely always the rule. And,
That's
you know,
so smart. Because I know people and they're kind of like, oh, I don't really like that brewery, but I know they would love what I'm giving them from that brewery, but they already have this prejudice before just because of the name of it.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. It's like cocktails on a cocktail menu.
Yeah.
You know you don't like it because it's this type of cocktail.
Yeah, and then, you know, most days we will actually rank the sake on the 5-point scoring system for the standard for sake. And you know, most of these guys have been with me for a long time now, and we do this all the time. So I mean, if we say so, everyone like scores the sake, then we don't get the thing where one guy is scoring it a 1, one scoring a 5. You know, it's all very concentrated. We know what we think.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, our sake is pretty weird, and conventional brewers don't approve of it often. But we know what it's supposed to be like, and so my guys will score that accordingly. And when we get sake from other breweries as well, you know, I mean, so there are different approaches to scoring sake as well. I mean, so there's the traditional sake industry scoring system, which is very ginja oriented, the kind of Hiroshima system, if you like. And I mean, my guys can do that as well, but you have to be clear, because I mean, they basically score sake opposite ways if they're talking about the Hiroshima system, or the what we want to drink system is like gives opposite results in our brewery.
The what we want to drink rubric.
Yeah. And so, you know, there are different protocols for tasting sake, and I mean, we get totally different results depending which system we're scoring by. But we can do it either way. I mean, you just have to flip it.
As somebody who's really, you know, been an innovator within Nihonshu over the past 20 years, especially here, have you seen any other things that have any other inventions or new ways of doing things that have been interesting to you?
No, that's a no.
Not so much.
Not so much.
I mean, it's been a very yeast-driven conversation largely, I think. And I mean, the classical modern ginjo style of sake with like fruity and flowery and sweet. So if you give that to my guys and do the Hiroshima scoring system, they will give it good marks.
Right.
So you say, shall we take this and drink with our dinner? They will say, no, thank you, because they don't like it with food. I basically don't think those sakes generally go very well with food. We like playing with temperature here as well. We like the shifts of change. The shifts that you get when you change the temperature of a sake is like a huge part of the fun for us. And those sakes, they really only work when they're cold, so you don't get to play with that with them either. So you know, they don't have an appreciative audience amongst most of my team. There's a couple of ladies who do the labelling. One of them kind of likes that stuff, but I mean, yeah. So innovations of the last 20 years. I mean, so much of it has been about those kind of styles, which again, I mean, hasn't really spoken to me. You know, and again, that was like when I first arrived here, we were having these conversations. So what kind of sake do we need to make to get people to buy it? I mean, that would have been a very easy, obvious thing to do, because those if you look at the sakes that have become famous in the last 20 years, with one or two noble exceptions, and almost all of them are basically those kind of styles of sakes, the very, very floral, fruity, sweet ones. And so, you know, I'm an employed brewer, so if the boss says that's the kind of sake we're going to make, then I have to make that kind of sake. But fortunately for us, or whatever, the boss has never really liked those like really powerful fragrances either. So there was never any suggestion that was like one of the things that we should do in aiming for new markets. So you know, we haven't used those yeasts at all in the almost 20 years that I've been here.
And I mean, you're saying that these couple of famous sakes would have all been in the floral and fruity, but at the same time, you're doing very well with international people and international chefs who all love to feature your sake on their menus. I'm saying it because I said to the guys in the car, I went to Noma in Copenhagen and they brought out a time machine and we were so excited to see it.
Yeah, I mean, they've used that sake. They used our Kimoto as well a few times. Yeah, I mean, I think this is, I mean, I don't know if we have time to talk about this in the time we have here today, but I mean, there's this Hiroshima system for scoring sake, which is like very prevalent in the industry here. And I mean, our sake scores very badly in that system, basically. And I mean, it's a system with its own logic. It's not wrong or anything, but it's just like one small corner of sake. And I mean, the sake industry is not good at working out what to do with the other stuff. And overseas, I mean, people who've learnt that, who come to sake and have learnt that traditional sort of framework, they will be puzzled by our sake as well.
Sure.
But people who haven't got that filter on their palate seem to like it fine. And I mean, I just got back from the UK and Germany, and I mean, I was in Munich and Berlin, and that's not a really big mature market like London or New York or something. And so I was going to a lot of places where sake hasn't been such a big part of the conversation for a long time. And I found myself talking to a lot of places where there was like natural wine was a huge part of the menu and what they did. And we do a lot of wild yeast sake, which is obviously a really good fit for people who are interested in that kind of thing. But not just that kind of sort of philosophy, but I mean also if you get people to taste down our range of sake, I find really often that people will say, here's the Daiginjo, and then there's like Junmai Ginjo, and then you get to the wild yeast Yamahai, and I mean suddenly like it's like the conversation kicks up to another level, and people are really excited by it. And I saw that like over and over again in Munich and Berlin this time, where you know people would like taste through. We knew because we only started working in Germany recently, so at the moment there are only 3 of our sakes there. But even so, you know, like it was like people would. So many people said that this is the one, our regular Yamahai, the unpasteurized, unfiltered, undiluted Genshu. This is like really bizarre sake according to the Hiroshima system. But people really like it, and I mean, lots of people said this is the kind of flavour profile that we like, that my customers like, and I mean, so it's not just the fact that it's a wild yeast sake; it's also kind of something about those like big bold flavours that seems to really resonate with people who are interested in those kind of, I think natural wine. I mean, the craft beer people as well. Obviously, it's like a lot of really bold, distinct, sometimes really extreme flavours go down well.
Yeah, because I think, like, again, if you would go with the example of the blind tasting, if you would do that with the super floral and sweet or elegant, and then you have a couple of Kimotos or something on that side, people will, I mean, I'm from Central Europe, so I'm basing my answer kind of on this. People will tend to go forward with the more Kimoto style. Like, I'm pretty sure almost any blind tasting would have same results. You know?
Well, I mean, so you hear all the time in Japan, in the sake industry, people will say that for beginners, it has to be like these fruity, flowery sakes. And I think it's like completely wrong. I mean, I think if you go and get 100 people who've never tasted sake before and give them a tasting of a whole range of things, some of them will go for those like fruity, flowery ones. Just as you say, like some of them like straight out of the gate are going to go for the weirdest, funkiest sake that we have. So I think it's a real strategic error on the part of the sake industry to make these assumptions and to be constantly like pushing these narrow orthodoxies. We're talking about the Hiroshima system of assessing sake, and our sake doesn't score well in that system. That kind of sake, I mean, it's the new sake awards. We don't sell a lot of new sake because we like it when it gets older. So in a lot of ways, our what we think is kind of opposite to a lot of brewing industry orthodoxy. And we also, I think, we have different ideas about serving temperatures as well. I mean, again, the kind of sake that wins gold medals, almost all the people who are making that are expecting you to drink it straight out of the fridge cold, and that is basically the only available conversation. And obviously there's a lot of sake out there that is like good cold. Some of the really clever ones are good cold or at room temperature or heated as well. But if you read sake books, it will tell you that the maximum permissible temperature for heating sake is like 55 degrees. And for our sake, that is really not a good temperature. The sake is, especially the pasteurized sakes, are like really, really stiff and nasty when they're just warm. And so our preferred temperature for heating sake is about 70 degrees, like tea hot. Yeah. And I mean, I think people who are nervous about drinking hot sake or have had a bad experience, I think people think that they have this idea that you heat the sake and it gets kind of nasty and rough and alcoholic. And we think exactly the opposite. For our sake, there is a lot of sake out there where you get up to that temperature and it suddenly falls apart and it gets really nasty really quickly. So that is true for a lot of sake. But for our sake, at the normal warm sake temperatures, it's like very stiff and harsh. And then you get up to about 70 degrees and it's all cuddly and warm and fun. And you get this like really lovely umami softness coming out. So for us, if we're heating the sake, it's not warm, it's hot. And that's true not just for, I mean, like people think when hot sake, most people are thinking maybe of Junmai styles or stuff like this. But across the board for us, really, I mean, so we'll drink all of our unpasteurized sake where we love drinking that stuff hot. Icebreaker, although we recommend serving that over ice for the heat of the summer, that's also excellent hot if you want to try that. And I mean, we have two Junmai Daiginjo style sakes. We age them for 4 years before we ship them, and you can drink them cold too, but they are delicious hot. And really, we prefer them hot, not warm. So we don't mind what temperature you drink it, but we're kind of sad if you're only drinking unpasteurized sake cold because that's what you read in a book, or if you're only drinking our Junmai Daiginjo cold because that is like correct way to drink it, right, when there is all this fun to be had at all these different temperatures. So, drink it whatever temperature you like, but if you're drinking Tamagawa sake, would be delighted if you try a bunch of different temperatures. And, way out of the comfort zone for most sake is like where our sake is often happiest.
And on that note, it's quite funny because I went to a sake festival in Osaka a little while ago and I met you and it was scorching hot and we were sweating. Like it was incredible and you had hot sake.
Of course, yeah.
And it was amazing. I mean, everybody was queuing for it and everybody wanted to drink it because it's just so good. So even though it was so hot, like that was kind of the one option that everybody was really queuing for. It's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, and so, in the winter, in a cold brew, at the end of the day, hot sake is great because it warms you up. Yeah. But we're not drinking hot sake just because we want to get warm. We're drinking hot sake because it's delicious. Yeah. And that's the only sensible reason to be drinking stuff. Yeah. So, it's not just a winter thing for us by any means.
Well, if you don't have access to Tamagawa sake, we feel very bad for you because we're going right into the next room to try some right now. But one thing you can do wherever you are in the world is ask your local bottle shop for it. And if you promise them that you're going to come and take it off their hands, they will find it. So do that.
Yeah, buy the oldest bottle you can find.
That's awesome. And you never hear that about sake, but you heard it here first.
Or buy a couple of bottles and then leave them in the cupboard.
Well, we get customers do this all the time now. I mean, so if you look at Instagram in May when Icebreaker comes out, There's penguins all over Instagram suddenly, and people saying, "Here I am drinking the new release of Icebreaker." But now what they almost all do is they say, "I'm drinking the new one, and I'm also drinking the old one that I kept from last year."
Yeah.
And so people who like Tamagawa, they tend to have collections. You come across people at events, and they'll say, "I've got 80 bottles of Tamagawa in my house." And when you talk to those people, say, "So is it in the fridge or is it room temperature?" And they look like you at this, like you're stupid, and they say, "At room temperature."
Well educated.
Yeah.
How big of a focus is markets that are not Japan for you right now?
Well, I mean, in terms of, we started exporting the year after I arrived here. Obviously, we hadn't even managed to export to Osaka up until that point, so this was a new thing. And I think about 17% of what we make goes overseas now, which is roughly double the kind of industry average. We're obviously grateful for that. It's loads of fun for me. I lived in Germany when I was 20, so it's like great to go back there and see our sake there. It's like great to be able to go home to the UK and see the sake there. And great to go to any overseas market and see people excited and see sake making progress there. It's like, because I've been sort of going overseas for that like 20 years, and 20 years ago there wasn't that much sake overseas. Sure. And now there is loads more. Which is obviously great for everyone, for us and for the people who drink it. The domestic market, again, sake is only about 5% of the total alcoholic drinks market here. So I really think the sake industry should get its act together and get 10% of the total market, and then we would suddenly everyone have to make twice as much sake, and everything would be great. So I think it ought to be possible to do that domestically as well. But on the other hand, we have a shrinking population here, an aging population, so there are obviously a lot of like negative pressures on the domestic market. Whereas there's nothing but space in if you're Italian winemakers, French winemakers expect to see half of what they make going overseas, and we're up to like 6% or something with sake. So we shouldn't be patting ourselves on the back and saying this is great. We should be saying we really need to get busy and do more of this. Mm-hmm. I am actually an English speaker, native English speaker as well. So I'm happy to be able to contribute in my own way to sort of get sake overseas. And obviously, as a business for us, it's great to have those markets with all that potential. Mm.
If you had to give 20 years ago Philip Harper some advice as he was about to take over this brewery up on the peninsula, hours away by car from Osaka, which way would you steer him?
I don't know. I have no idea. I don't think we made any really drastic wrong steps. So when I arrived here, it was this country brewery, and we had to do just basically a whole bunch of new stuff. So me and the brewery guys as well. But it's like the boss had to completely rethink his work life, his business strategies. And it's a blindingly obvious thing, but the first thing that happens, if you want to make your business grow bigger, the first thing that happens is that you end up poorer because you have to buy a bunch of stuff before you get any of the results coming in. So, he's had to take. My boss has had to take on loads of debt to be able to do what we've done. Well, I don't think that's an error at all. If we hadn't done that, the business would probably not have been here anymore. So. For the people on the sales end and the bottling end, it's just like one shock and one trauma after another, for sure. But of course, there've been mistakes and problems and struggles over the years. But I don't know what I would have said to me back 20 years again that would have actually made any difference. Don't know.
On that note, what are you most proud of?
Well, this whole thing, because the boss was seriously thinking about closing this place, and in the last 18 years, the sake industry overall hasn't grown. It's gone down and down and down. I mean, we're making more than 3 times what we used to make. Our sales are about 5 times what they used to be. And I mean, okay, so we have debts that we still have to pay off. So we're not like kind of like laughing our heads off on the way to the bank every day. There's still, and I mean, with the current round of rice trauma, we're in for a really, really brutal few years for sure. But I mean, I'm really, really proud of what we've achieved here.
How many products do you actually have at the moment? Like, how many different sakes do you make?
Well, so so like now I'm sort of getting the brewing schedule ready, and the brewing schedule has, I think, 16 kinds of sake on it. But then we age a lot of stuff here, so we have a lot of our pasteurized products we age for 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 years before we ship them. So that means we've got 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 years worth of each of those products. And you can find like some products we have a pasteurized version and an unpasteurized version. So somewhere between 16 and a couple of hundred, I guess. I mean, it depends how you count.
Yeah. And I mean, we're in the brewery now. Is there anything, because I know you don't do tours normally, but you have a shop that's obviously open, and our listeners might hear this a little bit in the background, people coming in and out and buying sake.
Yes, yeah.
So it's actually busy enough. Is there anything that you sell here that you cannot get anywhere else?
Yeah, we have a product, it's called Nakagumi. And every time we press a batch of sake, me or one of my guys will hand bottle 72 bottles straight from the press.
Okay, that's very specific.
Yeah, so they're numbered from 1 to 72, and so that series is here, and we don't sell that away from the brewery. So you have to come if you want to buy that, you have to come here. And so customers know that's here, and I mean that is the single most. I mean, every time you come, it's going to be a different sake because there are only 72 bottles of any given one. But we have customers who come back for that over and over, and that is the biggest single selling item here in our little shop. Yeah,
That's really cool.
Very cool. And then you do tastings as well for people come.
Yep, free tastings.
Do you have to book? If anybody travels through here, do people have to make a reservation?
No, I mean, so the place is closed on New Year's Day. Otherwise, there's somebody here. Not always me, especially at this time of year. We don't really have. I mean, we're not set up particularly to help English speakers. I mean, we have a video of our production process, and I made an English version of that, so we can sell that to people who don't speak Japanese. But we don't always have English speakers in the shop, so people might have to struggle with their phones or something.
Sure. Well, nothing that a little bit of beautiful sake can't help solve, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, I mean, we were looking forward to try a little bit later, maybe as well.
So it's been about an hour.
Yeah.
And so kind of the final kind of taking all the way back to the beginning of what got you into sake, but then also what keeps you in sake. Like you've done all these interesting things. You've kind of, maybe this is a little presumptuous, but you've kind of made it. You're kind of at the top. So like what's left for you to do? What are you excited? What keeps you like being like, oh yeah, this season I'm going to do this. I'm going to keep with it. I got to do this thing.
Well, so say last year. Last year, I mean, was actually an excellent year for us. I mean, like everyone else, we've been struggling with rice quality issues over the last years, and we did a whole lot of really extreme things last year to deal with that, and it worked really, really well. And so the sake last year was brilliant. And so let's say that I made one of this sake last year, and this is perfect, right? This is like, and I mean, we did do that a bit last year, I think. But here we are now, and I mean, we can't do the same thing and get the same results because the rice is different. So this is kind of the thing about this job is you never reach the point where you can say, now I do it, now I've got it now, because every year is different. I mean, the cliche is that you're a first year every year, and I mean, that's like totally true. So, I mean, if you want to think of that as a good thing, it means you never get bored because you never get to do the same thing twice. The downside is that you never get to do this thing where you say, now I understand it, now I know it, because that never happens. What was the other part of your question?
What like the first impetus to actually get into brewing?
Okay, well, I mean, so that's easy. I mean, I just drank a lot of stuff. So I came to Japan. I became friends with these two Japanese guys, and we were going to concerts and stuff together. And we started drinking sake together, and we joined a tasting club and did brewery visits and stuff. And the quick version of this is that all three of us gave up our jobs and became sake brewers. Well, my wife's version of that story is it's their fault. Yeah, one of them. I mean, he went backwards and forwards from sake to beer and then sake, and he actually stopped brewing last year. But the other guy, I mean, he's still going. He's the master brewer at Miyoya Brewery in Ishikawa. Wow. And so we hang out every year and talk about music and sake. So no progress there. Yeah. So I mean, if I hadn't met those guys, for sure, I don't think it would have ever happened. I wasn't expecting to do this for a living, for sure.
Life has mysterious ways.
Really, yeah. Yeah. One thing I kind of would like to sort of talk about a bit is because we do all this wild yeast brewing, and like some people who when they say that they brew with house yeast, some people will have a yeast that they isolated in their brewery and then they propagate it and use it in the normal way. And our brewing protocol is not that, right? So when we're making kimoto or Yamahai sake, we do it exactly the same way that it would have been done in the Edo period here when our brewery started, which is like, so the only things that we put in are rice and koji and water, and then all the lactic acid bacteria and all the yeast and all the other bits and pieces you need for that to work. They are just whatever is living in the brewery or in the water. And I think for the first few years I was here, before I came, this was basically a number 7 yeast brewery. And I think for the first couple of years, probably, it was just like number 7 yeast seeding itself. And a few years in, it started to get weird. And it started to do things that it wasn't supposed to do. And I mean, if you look at the sort of graphs of how our sake ferments and stuff, I mean, it's like very obvious that it does stuff that normal yeast cannot do. And so if after a few years in, when it was kind of like a kind of transition period of a few years, and I mean, it was clear to me that this was not association yeast. And you know, like we only use foaming yeast in this brewery, and I mean, if you're used to it, you can look at the foam and know which yeast it is. And so when fellow brewers come and they look at our wild yeast sake, they don't know what it is because it is not an association yeast. And we knew this already because it does impossible stuff. And then a few years ago, a nice man from the National Research Institute Brewing, who's done a lot of work on wild yeast, he took home a bunch of yeast from our brewery and did a whole bunch of experiments and stuff with it. And he also checked the genetic makeup of the yeast. And so almost all the sake that is made in the world now is made with a bunch of yeasts in a very small group, which are basically genetically in the same family as association yeast number 6. And our guys, they're off in a different group. So we knew that already because they do impossible stuff. But this nice man, he went and proved it for us.
When you say impossible, can you give us an example?
Yeah, well. So the orthodoxy is that when alcohol gets above 18%, then the yeast starts to weaken and die. And our yeast didn't get the message, so it doesn't. And so you know, our main Yamahai product, the Genshu, that we press that when the saccharometa value gets to +4, and the alcohol is usually somewhere in the 20% range. Wow, which is. That's not really supposed to happen. But we also have a limited edition where we allow it to ferment as far as it will go every year. And that's usually in the 21% range. And 7 times, I think, 6 times, we've got over 22%. Wow. Which is kind of tricky because the legal definition of sake is only up to 21.9.
Exactly.
Oh, is it 21.9?
21.9. So when it gets to 22, we can't put sake on the label anymore, and we have to have long conversations with the tax office.
That's always pleasant.
Yeah. And so our record is 22.4. Wow. And you know, you can't do that with normal yeast. So this guy Akao Sensei, he did a bunch of experiments comparing the fermentation with like number 7 yeast. And like normal yeasts in the later stages of the fermentation, the yeast starts dying off. So basically at the end of a batch, about a third of the yeast is dead. And he did experiments with 5 different strains of our yeast that he took from various batches. And the weakest one, 93% of the yeast was still alive at the end of the fermentation.
Wow.
And the strongest one, 97%, was still alive. So it's impossible stuff, yeah.
It's indestructible yeast.
Indestructible yeast, yeah.
Wow.
So we're lucky to have those guys living here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you do to protect that sanctuary?
Well, I mean, we have got some on ice, but we don't have any way to use it because that is our rule is that we just it's whatever comes along. So we pray that the building doesn't get knocked down in an earthquake.
Yeah, right.
I mean, when we did the big build, I mean, I'll show you the brewer in a minute. When we did the big extension, I mean, in terms of efficiency, the logical thing would have been to knock it all down and build a modern brewery. But obviously, we can't do that because the old buildings drive what we do. I don't want to do it anyway. I think it's really cool that we have the old buildings, but practical they are not. Yeah. It's something that obviously only exists here. So you can't. As a matter of observable fact, you cannot make Tamagawa anywhere else because it's this environment that is making that stuff. I mean, I'm a kind of. I just like drinking stuff basically, and so I think if it's good, I'll drink it. And so we enjoy making the Sokujo stuff as well, the normal stuff. So it's not kind of weird philosophical thing with us. It's just different ways of making fun things to drink. So we don't. I mean, as a kind of sales strategy, it will probably make sense to make it all wild yeast and do it that way. But we like making and drinking the other stuff too much to do that. So
sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Philip, for letting us come and bug you in your home, in your seasonal home here at the Kinoshita Brewery. It's been an absolute pleasure, and on behalf of JSS, on behalf of Sake on Air, the whole team, and on behalf of all of our listeners, just thank you from the bottom of our sake-loving hearts.
Sake on Air is made possible with the generous support of the Japan Sake and Shochu Makers Association and is broadcast from the Japan Sake and Shochu Information Center in downtown Tokyo. It is produced by Export Japan, and our team is Shuso Imada, Justin Potts, Arlene Lyons, Cindy Bissig, Chris Hughes, Chris Pellegrini, John Gottner, Marie Nagata, Miho Ota, Rebecca Wilson-Lai, Sebastian Lewan, and me, Frank Walter. Until next time, kampai!